Hello, this is a video about organisation, editing and behind the scenes. It's also sponsored by SanDisk, so thank you to them for that. When you're shooting with film, you're pretty fortunate to have two different separate archives. You've got your digital archives, which are stored on your computer and your hard drives, but you also have your physical archive of your actual negatives. I often overlook the actual physicality of the negatives. Having a physical backup that you can actually go back to and rescan or print from is actually amazing. But if you don't properly look after your archive, one day if your computer crashes or your hard drive breaks, you're going to be really kicking yourself that you didn't back up your files or organise your negatives so that you can go back to them and rescan everything. So I by no means am the best at this at all, but it's something that I'm really trying to work on this year. So I'm not really one for New Year's resolutions, but I guess this can be mine. So I thought it might be a helpful video to show you how I edit my photos, where I save them, how I back them up, and also where I store my negatives. So first, let's look at the process of what happens when I receive some scans. So usually I have a folder to download from WeTransfer, which is housing all of my scans. I then download the folder and drop it straight into Lightroom, and here I make some slight crops and adjustments to the image. On the most part, I don't really tend to do anything to the image, as the lab is already scanning my photos to my preference, but sometimes I might change up the contrast a little bit, or just tighten the crop. I then go and export all of the photos to a new folder without changing the dimensions or compressing the file, and that's pretty much it. Unless I'm editing a drum scan, which I do in Photoshop, and is completely different since it's an extremely fat image, and you have a lot more control about how you want it to look. Which takes us to where the files are actually kept. So all the files live on this lovely folder on my desktop called Film. This then houses a variety of more folders, which are named after every camera that I've ever used. And then, within each of those folders, are even more folders, which are numbered with each roll of film I've ever shot with that camera. Additionally, there are some folders full of bodies of work which are kind of separate to being organised in that manner, because it's more about the images together than the period of time that I took them. I used to keep everything in dated folders as opposed to numbered rolls, but when I started making these videos which are all about film, it was more important to know what I was shooting and find it that way, rather than which date I took the photo. But then, what happens when I need to travel? How do I take my images with me? And where do I back them up? For this very reason, I have this lovely portable SSD from SanDisk. Now this is a sponsored video, however, I have actually owned one of these for over 2 years, so I was more than happy to talk about it in this because it is what I have been using. So on my SSD, I keep a backup of all of my photos I've ever taken on film, which I store somewhere completely separate to my computer, so in the event of some crazy fire or explosion, at least one copy is safe. And then if I'm going to be away from home for a few days, I use the SSD with my laptop to work from, using the files from there to save space on my laptop's hard drive, and this is also great when I have to edit a video on the move. The whole reason I bought this thing in the first place was because of how small and portable it is. Another great bonus is just how fast it transfers files. I've heard it's up to 4 times the speed of a normal portable hard drive. The hard drive comes in loads of different sizes. I've got the 480GB one. That houses a lot of photos. But what about those physical negatives? How am I keeping them, you ask? Well, the other day I actually organised them all into this lovely new filing system that I bought off Amazon. There's 5 different drawers which distinguish different film formats, as labelled on the drawers themselves. And then within each drawer, Bailey helped me make these little paper sandwiches to help separate the different bodies of works or themes, whilst having some lovely artwork on them to help you easily identify. Before I use these drawers, I used to use ring binder folders to keep everything together, which is pretty good. It's quite easy to flick through, but when I started shooting bigger sheet film, they didn't have the holes punched on the side to keep them in there, so I thought this was a better solution. So I do have one confession to make, that this is not all of my film that's stored in this thing. I do have about 200 rolls of film that are still left at my lab from the last year, so probably going to have to go through them soon. However, I like to say that it's a nice safe way keeping it in a different building, that at least if my house burnt down, they'd still be okay. But I'm probably going to bring them home soon and go through all of them, which is going to be a really big task. So as much as I'm telling you how this is important, I've probably got to watch this video as well and remind myself that. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can take something from it. I hope you figure out your archiving solutions. If you think there's something I can be doing better, why not tell me? I'm open for learning too. Thank you again to SanDisk for sponsoring this. I genuinely do use that hard drive, it's really good. Yeah, cool. See you again soon.